So, can somebody remind me, what did we say yesterday or in the last class about what is your culture? What is Korean culture? Who can introduce yourself to me, pretending I'm a guy from United States and you want to explain that you are Korean?
Professor, I will.
Great, thank you. I was just about to ask
you. Okay. So I can say anything about the Korean culture?
You can, but the question is to introduce yourself to some American person so they know what is a Korean person. Who are you? What are your values? Are you American?
Okay. No, I am Korean, and I am from Korea, and mostly, including me, and Koreans are really maybe polite. Korea is a famous country for being a polite, and Korean people, not only me, but traditionally we eat lots of bibimbap. So maybe I think you've heard of that. And yeah, I think that's that's all.
Okay, so what about Win? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Miss Win, can you introduce yourself? Are you the same as Suhyun Lee? Are you from the same country and culture? Do you like bibimbap? And are you polite? Miss Hong Win, can you hear me?
Hello. 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 Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. I get some problem with my mood. Actually, I'm not Korean. I'm Vietnamese. So I think we are from Asian, but our culture is a little bit different. Yes. My country is like
Suhyun Lee said only she's polite, so you must be a very terrible lady. Are you a rude person?
No, I mean just a little bit different. We're also polite, but I think Vietnamese people is like kind of friendly and yes, um, and yes, just friendly and polite.
So it sounds to me like you're from the same culture. You're both polite, and that's what she was saying. And do you like bibimbap?
Actually, I'm not really enjoy bibimbap.
So you're not Korean.
Yes, I'm not Korean.
Can you explain more about what is Vietnamese culture?
I think Vietnamese food is really special and have some like famous foods like phở. Yes, I think it's famous all the world, and it's special foods like it's like symbol of Vietnamese food. Yeah.
Okay, so you both, Miss Lee and Miss Win, you have described your cultures as interested in food and you're polite. I can't think of some country that doesn't like food and doesn't think they are polite. So how about we change it a little bit more? What about Hong Min? I want you to introduce yourself, but go to the next level. Let's try to hear Hong Min introduce himself for a job interview. So I want to know, should I hire and give a job to Soo-hyun Lee, or should I hire and give a job to Hong Win? Both of those people like food and they're polite. But I'm a businessman from North America. I want to hire somebody that's going to be a good worker and a good manager. Hong Min, can you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello. My name is Minho and I'm from Korea and I major in international business and I especially like culture. So that's why I've been always like the culture study from elementary to now. And I like also sports like basketball and tennis. And thank you.
Okay, so that's the main idea.
I can do well in business and I like to communicate with foreigners. So I think the job that can work at the outside of this country is fit for me.
Okay, so if I am a regular North American person, you all sound like my neighbors. I have one neighbor that likes bibimbap. I have another neighbor that likes pho. Both of my neighbors are polite. And I have another guy down the street that he likes business and he likes many different cultures. Sounds like you guys are Canadian. I still don't know, how are you different than Canadian guys?
Okay.
Can anybody in the class, what about Dylin Lee? Can you tell me,
Yes.
how is a worker in Korea different than a worker in Canada?
I guess I'm not sure if I can generalize this, but Korean workers are so much more, I think, they think their work is really like a big part of their life. That's why I think Koreans kind of tend to overwork and I don't know, I think Koreans are more focused on the like, I don't know how to explain this, but because Korean culture is so focused on the Confucianism and it's based from the Confucianism, I think they tend to be more diligent in order to be liked by many other superiors of the company. I think it's a terrible answer.
So you like to be polite to the superiors of the country, of the company.
So that's why I
want to meet some worker that likes to be rude to their boss. Which worker anywhere in the world wants to say, "Hey, boss"?
True, but this is a very hard question, I think.
Yes, it is. That's what I'm going to be teaching you in this course. I started to try to teach this to you last class. Let's try to get into I'm going to show you my screen. Right now, I have a website here, and it's a website by a famous professor and researcher called Gert Hofstede. Try to remember that name, Hofstede, and put it into Google together with name any country in the world, and it might be interesting if you're a geek for being drunk at a party on Friday night. Obviously, we're interested in Korea. Some student, yell out another country you want to. What country do you think is the opposite of Korean culture? What people are most different than Koreans? Anybody, yell out some country. Take a guess. There's no right or wrong. Let's try it out.
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay, so I'll write in here Netherlands. All right, next. Who is another student that can? What about Eugene O?
Yeah.
Which
Maybe
country?
I just
Which
guess.
country do you think is opposite?
I just guess Norway.
Norway? Okay. Do you want to try United States? Let's see what it looks like here. I think, did I start showing you this last class?
No.
No.
Okay, so what we're seeing here is Korea is green. So Korea has the highest amount of power distance, and Norway has very low power distance. So good guess, Norway is almost the opposite of Korea with culture. The countries of United States, this says, is very similar to Korean culture. Does that make sense to you? How about Min Jae
Yes.
Kim? You understand what this means? Power distance is similar with Koreans and United States, Americans? How about we jump through and we actually start to define it? So when we're looking at different countries' people, it's nice to talk about manners, but everybody thinks they're polite. And it's nice to talk about food, but everybody likes to eat food. So we need some more specific details to test. Number one, not just the other people, but try to think, who are you? Because many people don't know who you are yourself. So let's think of power distance as number one. And this dimension deals with the fact that all individuals in society are not equal. Can you see this okay? You want me to blow it up, make it a little bigger?
I think it's yeah.
So power distance deals with the fact that all individuals, all people in the society, we are not equal. Nowhere in the world anybody is equal. It expresses the attitude of the culture towards the inequalities. So power distance is defined as the extent or the amount that less powerful people and organizations in the country, they expect and they accept that power is not equal. So in Korea, what this is saying is the less powerful members, like a young person or a young student, they just automatically accept that the older people or somebody in Samsung or the government is much more powerful than me. And I don't ask any questions. I have to go, yeah, agasimnida, I kiss your bum, all that stuff. So as at an intermediate score, 60, wow, that's intermediate. That means you're just sort of in the middle. Which country do you think has higher difference in power between people?
Saudi Arabia.
Maybe Saudi Arabia. Okay, so the ruling family, those ruling sheik are much, much more powerful than other people. Yes, in some countries, the very powerful people can actually kill lower members of the country, and there's no problem. So hopefully Korea is not exactly like that. However, South Korea is hierarchical. It's actually it's very much hierarchical. You need to listen to who's above you, and that person above you has to listen and do almost everything that the person above them says. Almost no questions, right? But I'm teaching international cross-cultural management. So while most students in this class are Korean, and most students are not going to question the hierarchy, if you don't question me, you will probably have a big problem. You're going to lose a lot of marks in my class if you don't argue with me. I want you to argue with me. I want you to fight with me. I want you to show me your ideas. and catch me when I'm wrong. If you catch me when I'm wrong, I'll give you the bonus point for that. And maybe next day you don't need to come to class. You already have extra bonus points for it. But use your brain, be strong-minded, speak up. It also means that people accept and expect the hierarchical order in which everybody has a place and which needs no further justification. So in Korea, I know, can you guys see me okay? Let me see if you can't see me. If you are in your hierarchy, what this is saying is you don't argue when somebody says they're above you. What do you think it's like in the United States?
It's completely opposite.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So I guess United States is more focused, so that's why they are not really putting importance on the hierarchy of the company. So I guess even though you don't have much power, you can easily express your opinions or feelings.
Right. In the United States, anybody can say anything to anyone. You can go up and call Donald Trump a dummy or ugly, no problem, and it's not a problem. More people should do that. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And again, hierarchy in an organization is seen as reflecting inherent inequalities. Centralization is popular. Subordinates in Korea expect to be told what to do. And the ideal boss is an autocrat. So the ideal boss in Korea makes all decisions, tells people what to do, and every other person in Korea just follows and does what the other person tells you. So most people in Korea that are at the top of the hierarchy would be who? Who is at the top of the hierarchy in Korea? Give me an example. How about Javokir Abdullah? Can you tell me, who do you think is at the top of the hierarchy in Korea?
Uh, I, I, to be honest, I don't get it.
Okay, let's try maybe somebody else that might understand. Did I ask Lee Sung-hak yet?
No, Professor.
Can you tell me, what do you think it means about hierarchy in Korea? And who is at the top of the hierarchy in Korea? What kind of people, what kind of jobs are at the top of the hierarchy? Who controls the country? And
The president of Korea, I think.
that's one. Who else?
Yes, and
What other people do you have to listen to? What other people or jobs, if they tell you something, you just need to say, yes, sir, 알겠습니다, 할 거예요. Or, I'll do it now.
professors or
Professor,
teachers.
oh,
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
So you're saying I have a lot of power? I can tell you to go wash my car and shine my shoes, and you can't answer any questions? I got a great car today. My car should be super clean. Are you serious?
Sorry.
Really? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think it's true.
Okay, so if it is true, what I guess you're saying to explain to Abdullah is that people at the top of the hierarchy, they can say things to people in a different level of society, and the people in the lower level of society can't argue, can't ask questions, they just must do it. Like a professor or a president, they say something and the students have to do it. So I'm teaching a class and I hear from what you said that almost all of your elementary school teachers, middle school teachers, high school and university teachers before me, if they say something, even if you think it's wrong, you just say, yes, sir, okay, and you don't argue. You do what your professor says. Is that true? Che, Sungyeon, is that true?
Sometimes true, but sometimes don't.
Okay, maybe most of the time it's true. The teacher says everything and decides all details in class, right?
Pardon?
Usually your elementary
Yes.
school, high school teacher, university teacher, they decide everything in class and they say most of the information in class, correct?
Kind of, but like, yeah, it's half correct but half wrong. Like I don't know how to say, but like,
It's close, okay?
yes.
So that's what Hofstede is saying. Hofstede is saying that you are 60 marks in hierarchy. So you are upper intermediate level of hierarchical society. And you were saying that professors are close to the top of the hierarchy, so they have a lot of power. Now, what about the Harvard case study method? How do American and Canadian professors teach? Does anybody know what is the Harvard case study method of education?
Maybe to debate.
Yes, absolutely. So the class has a topic that you're going to debate, and you actually argue it. You should be arguing with other students in class, and you also argue with students and professors in class. So in Korea, we don't usually have that. You need to understand my class is going to be following an international cross-cultural view, and I am not going to make all decisions. I'm not going to be speaking the most. You must be almost on an equal level as me. If you're not, I'm going to view you as not understanding cross-cultural communications, because you must be able to communicate with people from the other culture in the other culture's way. So that's just one aspect we're going to be focused on. Individualism is another way to describe culture. I've described culture with power distance. Some countries have high power distance, high hierarchy. Some cultures are more equal or low power distance. What about individualism? What does individualism mean? How about Suksana Angwara? Can you tell me, what do you think individualism means for a cultural description?
I think it's a selfish, right?
Somebody being selfish, okay? So some countries are selfish and some countries are not selfish. What do you think is the opposite of individualism?
Sorry, I don't know.
Can somebody guess what is the opposite of individualism?
I
Collectivism.
think it is collectivism.
Yes, individualism and collectivism. Thank you. So you understand those details, but the reality is individualism is not talking about being selfish at all. Actually, it's talking about individual detail, individual fact, an individual object is what they're focused on. Versus other people, they might not see one individual fact, they will see the whole collective group picture. So in Korea, when you introduce yourself to somebody, hi, who are you? Many people might say, I'm a Keimyung University student, or I'm a Samsung employee. You describe the group that you're a part of. And so you're not individualistic, you are group or collectivist focused. So the definition here is the fundamental issue addressed by this dimension is the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. It has to do with people's self-image is defined as I or we. In Korea, we are students of this school. And in North America, they say, I am Sean. I am an individual professor. Many times I don't need to say my company name or my university name. I just describe me. It's not related to being selfish or group-oriented that much. It's related to the details. When you are communicating with somebody for business, make sure you understand that, because if you are talking with a business person in North America or parts of Europe, one comma can change the meaning enormously, and it could end up making you go bankrupt just because you put a comma wrong. And a lot of North Americans will definitely notice where you put the comma or where you put a space or where you put even a period, because it changes the whole idea a lot. So those are some aspects of the culture. I'm going to get back and show you more details here. Try to show you my screen. There we go. So I'm going to show you the screen that I'm working on. And again, we're talking about the idea that most people in the world don't think of other countries. They don't think of other cultures. They don't think of other people's values. And that's a huge problem. More than 75% of the world's CEOs, they expect and accept that foreign competition or companies and people from other countries, other cultures, are a serious factor for their business success. 2/3 of the world's CEOs expect to get most of their employment or most of their money from outside of your home country, especially in Korea. Korea is a super small country with only 50 million people here. To work cross-culturally, you must understand how other people do it. By 1990s, Coke earned more profits selling Coca-Cola just in Japan than all of the United States. And that was in the 1990s. Many years have gone by and it's getting more and more international. The next aspect here is you're supposed to be aware that China is overtaking the United States now. Whether you like it or not, China is growing super fast. Vietnam is also growing even faster. So those cultures, those countries are going to have more power in international business and communications. You must understand those aspects. The idea that the United States is losing power very quickly with Donald Trump. But does that mean you have to learn Chinese? Here's a quiz question for today. What language is the most valuable language in the world for a business person?
Spanish.
Good guess. What is another guess?
English.
English?
Chinese.
Good guess. Anybody want to try and come up with a better guess?
French.
I think it's Chinese.
Next, keep going.
Chinese.
Keep going.
English.
There are many Chinese customers, but that is not the most important language of business. So I said, it's not Korean, it's not English, it's not French, not Spanish, not Chinese. What else can you pick? Just yell out any country. I don't even know who's saying it. Talk.
Japanese.
Japanese, good. Next.
German.
Still wrong.
Arabic.
Sorry? Arabic.
India.
Good guess. Wrong.
Portuguese?
Portuguese.
French.
Terrible guess. And wrong.
Russian. Russian.
Russian. Good guess. Wrong.
Philippines.
Korean.
No. Wrong.
Is there no answer?
There is an answer. Absolutely, there's an answer. You guys are just thinking in the wrong way. I didn't say country. I asked you what language is the most important language in business? What language is the most important language in the world?
Body language?
Well, that's kind of cool. And it's much, much better than Korean or Chinese or American. Body
Internet.
language is more important than Chinese or American, but there's
Isn't
even
it-
one better answer than that.
Eye contact.
Business language.
Contact? What? I didn't hear you.
Business language.
What language? Yeah.
Oh, the language that can help for the business.
What? Yes, that's my question. What
Um,
language is most helpful to do business in the world?
Eye contact.
Internet.
Internet language, body language. Good guesses. Actually,
Translator.
sorry.
Translator.
A translator, yeah. Translator is good, but there is one clear answer. The answer is always the language of your customer. Whoever your customer is, whoever your business partner is, their language is the most important language for business. So I talk about that, and it seems silly, but it's very important. You must understand to stop thinking about your own way. Stop thinking of yourself. Everything that you have learned and everything that your other teacher, that even the hierarchy or your mother, your father, they taught you, it's actually not that important if you want to have cross-cultural management success. You must understand what the other person values. And so I'm showing you a PowerPoint slide here, and in the PowerPoint slide, it's talking about money, but it's your focus is not just money. Oops, where'd it go here? I have hired people to work with me from Kenya for 15 cents an hour. And I've had people in the Philippines working for $200 a month. There are people that I know in Vietnam that also work for me. And surprisingly, most people in the world don't accept a global view. When I ask somebody in Kenya, how much should you be paid? That person said 16 cents. So what's that? Oshibwan, 160 won per hour. That's what they said. Han Solhan, if you work for me, how much do you want for 1 hour?
In
10,001.
10,000
One.
won per hour? Is that what you were saying?
Yes. Yes.
Basically $10 an hour. So
Yeah, $10.
that is 100 times more than the person working in Kenya, right?
Yes.
So are you 100 times more valuable? It's something to think about. I'm not saying that some people are better than other people, but I am saying that you must stop thinking just language, stop thinking just money, stop thinking that your mom said this is good. It's much more important to understand what the other person values. So if we go on to the next slide, historically, for the last 50 years, almost 100 years, most of the world has tried to follow United States. And God help us if you want to keep following Donald Trump. No, please don't do that. There are much, much better ways to manage. Make sure you understand that the people that usually rule are the people that control the technology. Somebody said using the internet is the way to communicate. Yes, that's very, very valuable. And the more you know about controlling information on the internet, the more successful you will be. But you must understand, for example, in Korea, most people use cacao. But in Vietnam, almost nobody uses cacao. And in Canada, most people just use Facebook. Or in Japan, they use Line. In Vietnam, for example, they're usually using Zalo or Viber. So the technology changes depending on where you are. If you only are Korean using cacao in Vietnam, it will be very hard to have business success and meet a lot of other people. So the idea that people are trying to learn from what Harvard says or trying to learn from what Barack Obama or Trump or the Americans say, you can learn from them, but don't take that as the law or the rules. Americans' view of people from economically developing countries, it's often based on parochialism. So there are three words you must understand. And one is parochialism. The next is ethnocentric. And then some of the last words would be SRC. So does anybody know what parochialism means? Jiwoo Byun, do you know what parochialism means? And understand, me being a Canadian, saying, I don't know, professor, is a good thing. I will respect you if you say, nope, I don't know what it is. In Korea, it might be bad. But I'm not teaching Korean studies, I'm teaching cross-cultural management. So, Ms. Byun, do you know what parochialism means? Are you checking on Google right now? Guess! Or just say, no, I don't know. Does anybody know what parochialism means? I'll give you a hint. Every one of you have been highly parochial. Everybody on the planet was parochial. And if you're intelligent and if you have a great education, you change from being parochial, and then later with training and education, you may become ethnocentric, and both of those are bad. Both of those are terrible. So everybody on the planet starts terrible.
I think that can I answer?
You sure can.
Parochialism is that when is related to the mind. When someone learn or know something, that they are like bind in their own mind that they decide, I think.
I think you just use Google to find it out. Thank you. I love that. It sounds like you're reading it off Google. And if you did, good. I should give you more marks for that. So, Ali, make sure you give lots of points for her, especially if you use Google, because that is one way to learn. Just what is in your mind, it's good, but it's also a problem. So you must check other people or check Google. So that's good. Actually, parochialism is how every baby is born. When you are a baby, you are born and your mother teaches you, your father or your teacher teaches you, and that's all you know. You only know one way of doing things. And you forget that a mother on the other side of the world, maybe they teach the same thing, but if we're on a circle, like if this is the world and the mother up here, she's saying this is good. Well, if she's on the bottom of the world, that same mother is saying the opposite direction is good. So just being a good person, your mother and father will tell you the opposite things depending on where you are in the world. So you learn that. Being parochial means you know one way of doing things and you think that is normal. Anybody that does not do my way is strange or bad or ignorant. That is a baby. After you go to school, you get educated. Oh, the Chinese do it differently. Oh, the Saudi Arabians do it differently. Oh, the Canadians do it differently. But Canadians, their brain is frozen because too much ice and snow. So let's just keep doing our way. So ethnocentric is when you learn there are other ways, but they're strange. My way is still best. The other way, I don't understand it. It's crazy. That's just like Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler knows his way, but the Jewish way, it's so bad, let's just kill him. And the other countries' ways are so bad, let's just kill him. I don't want you to be ethnocentric, and you definitely should not be parochial. That's kind of an insult, and even though everybody's born that way, you need to be culturally synergistic. Work with the other people's culture. That is usually best. Many Americans consider themselves the most highly civilized people in the world. Why? Because they're accustomed to technical inventions. But the truth is, most inventions in North America, they actually stole from England 100 years ago. And so United States just copied what they did in England. And then Japan developed very quickly, and England developed. United States took 100 years to copy England, and then United States developed. Japan copied England and copied United States, and Japan developed in 70 years. Korea copied England, copied United States, copied Japan, yes, copied Japan, and Korea developed in 20 to 30 years. Well, China and Vietnam now are developing much faster, and their society and culture is going to be developing probably in as soon as 5 to 10 years. So be aware that changes are happening very, very fast. Don't go around insulting some people. Also, I wanted to say, how can you learn about it? How about Fontidat Weyasong? Did I say your name correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me, or guess, please guess, how are you supposed to learn the best way to communicate culturally around the world? How should you do international business? Where should you learn? How should you learn? What do you guess?
Try to do new thing.
Sure, do new things, that's good. Any other guesses?
And you'll be
It's best if you put your hands up on the screen and I can see you have your hands up. Do you guys know how to raise your hands yet? Something like this. Oh, Soo-hyun Lee, yes. Can you?
I think maybe meeting people from various countries, maybe traveling around the world, or in Korea, there are lots of environment that you can meet another country people, foreign people, and also talk with them.
That's a very good thing to do. The more you travel, I guarantee the more you're going to learn. So absolutely, travel a lot. But I have traveled a lot, and I don't tell too many people, but I met a lot of idiots. There's a lot of people that are really, really psycho or crazy, and you should not learn from them. So, any other suggestions? Who should you listen to? Who should you trust? Who should be an expert to hear? Professors? Teachers? Teachers and professors, they're supposed to learn properly and teach things to their community. And the best teachers are usually teachers, professors that also do a lot of research. And you, if you do research and publish things, that's why your resume is going to be more valuable if you take your class paper and publish it. Show that you've done class research and you try to publish it, and put that on your resume, and your resume is better than anybody else's. But the truth is that even though most professors and researchers are trying to do good, as you can see on my screen here, of more than 11,000 global management or cross-cultural management research articles, of 11,000 of them in 24 of the world's best management journals, more than 80% are only focusing on the American style or American companies or American culture. And fewer than 5% are articles describing people in organizations with the concept of culture. Less than 1% focus on people from 2 or more cultures. So what is my point here? You should trust professors. Maybe you should trust me. But check, have I been drinking? Am I drunk? Am I crazy? Am I smoking drugs? Make sure it's good information. Because a lot of professors, they only study in their area, they only know their environment. And so if they go into a different culture, it's wrong. And so you must understand those details. There is not a lot of research coming out of Vietnam right now. So there's not a lot of people to teach you what is the correct way. Mr. Chang, are you trying to raise your hand?
No, no.
No?
I was just control the line.
Okay. If any of you do, I want to see more people interacting and putting your hand up using the icons on the screen. Hopefully everybody can start doing that at least once today before the class is finished. So my point is that you have already written papers for other classes. Try to publish that. Put it into a student newspaper. Put it into a student magazine. Then on your resume, you can say you were a specialist, you did research, you published this. It will make your resume more valuable and more attractive than somebody that didn't publish something. The more you do related to the company and the job you want, the easier it will be for you to get that job. That's also why in my classes, every student should try to write a paper for the company and the country they like and try to publish it to help them. So next, among the international articles, 96%, almost every article found says culture has a huge, significant impact on management and communication styles in organizations. You must understand the culture differs depending on where you're going. Next, here's an example. How else can cultures change? I listed 2 ways to describe culture 5 minutes ago. What are they? Suksana Angawa. Do you remember what are the 2 ways that I said you could describe culture? Suksana, are you there? What about Sukrita Pair or Sukrita Pirar? Can one of you answer? Nobody's listening to me. Nobody loves me. Anybody? Somebody put your hand up. Oh, so yes, Lee Sung-hyun, Sung-young Lee. What are the ways to describe culture?
The power distance and the individualism.
Yes. What is the opposite of high power distance culture?
Low power distance.
Yes. See, I'm not that hard. A lot of what I'm saying and a lot of what other professors are saying, it shouldn't be hard to guess or argue with them. High power distance, opposite low power distance. Individual cultures, the opposite is collective cultures. Yes. And now there are new ways to describe culture that I'm showing you on your screen. I have individual world views. So your perception of the world or perception of individual, some people think individual could be good, or some people could think it's bad, evil. There's also some people that think of human relations or human interactions. Some people focus on individual human relations, like in the United States, but in Korea, they think of hierarchical groups. Do you see this table here? This table was created by a person in Europe. It was based on Cluckhorn and Strodbeck. These people wrote that some cultures might be classified as evil and some other dimensions of cultures might be classified as good. So what they're saying is individual, maybe good. If it's not individual, maybe it's evil. Soo-hyun Lee or Han-Sol Han or Ho-Yo Chang. Something tells me you're all Korean. Just a guess. Are you evil? Maybe no. Mr. Chang is evil. The way he's shaking his head at me, maybe he's evil. Right, so what is the problem? Tear that picture up. What's the problem with this picture? This was created by a famous guy. Later, I will talk to you maybe a little bit about Maslow. Maslow teaches how to manage different people. And Maslow is also absolutely wrong. This was created by famous people called Cluckhorn, Mr. Cluckhorn, or Dr. Strodbeck. They're wrong. Why? Because they're just basing it on their own culture, saying their style is individualistic. So they might say that style is good. And the other style, maybe the communist style or the Chinese style that's not individualistic, maybe that's evil. So take a look at that. I'm showing you, you must understand there are different views of culture, but they can be wrong. Argue, be able to argue with anybody. Be confident with whatever you think in your mind. What about activity and time? How can somebody not understand time? Some cultures of the world are different than your culture based on time. And to make it, you think that's an easy question? I'm going to make it more difficult just because you guys are so quiet. If you talk more, I'll be easier. More difficult, I'm not talking about just being late to a meeting. So how can a country have a different culture based on time? And it has nothing to do with being late or early. Come on, class, talk. Who's got the hand up? Hands up. Come on, put the hand up. Oh, use the icon, Miss Lee.
Okay.
Use the icon. There we go. Oh, I see Sungyeon Lee. You beat you. Go ahead, Sungyeon Lee.
As far as I know, there are some cultures that value that, for example, if you promise to meet at 2 p.m., but it is polite to show up late in some countries.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it's not related to late or early. So you're right. Many people, they think it's okay to show up late. In Korea, you should start to be on time. In North America, you have to be on time or a little bit early. Maybe in Vietnam, it's no problem if you're 10 minutes late or half an hour late, you can say the traffic. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a different type of time. How is it? Anybody else going to put your hand up? Go ahead, Miss Lee. Can you be first? No? Anybody? Who else is going to put their hand up first? I'm looking at the chart. Put the icon up. Put the icon up. Somebody else check.
I have my icon up, I think.
I don't see it yet. Do you? No, I don't.
Here now?
Go ahead. You can talk, Miss Italian Lee. What
Are you talking about the year difference? Because some countries, they don't stick to the same time frame.
Lunar year.
Mm-hmm.
This is the lunar calendar versus solar calendar. Yes, that is a good point.
That too, and also, also the North Korean time and our time is different because their time is based on their leader's birth date.
Okay. Yes, that is another way that culture is different. But no, that's not what I'm talking about. What Cluckhorn, Professor Cluckhorn and Professor Strodbeck, they are talking about past versus future. What does that mean? You can see on the screen, right? On the screen, it says time. Some cultures are future-oriented, and some cultures are present-oriented, and some cultures are past-oriented. Sungyeon Lee, you're the only one. Before you start talking, Sungyeon Lee, can you teach the class how did you put your icon hand up?
Okay, on the list of the participants, at the bottom of the participants, you can see invite, mute, myself, and then hands up.
Invite, mute, and over here, yes?
Yes.
Can you guys see my screen? Can you see my screen that has it up?
Your screen just stopped in the value orientation dimension page.
No, I guess you guys can't see that, but yes, at the bottom of the invite screen, there's a way that you can put your hand up. So can you repeat that one more time, Miss Lee?
Okay, at the bottom of the participation list, you can see 3 buttons: invite, mute myself, and hands up. Yeah, so that's one of the buttons.
Yes. Great. So hopefully you guys all know that. So go ahead, Miss Suyan Lee, what were you going to say before I interrupted you?
Okay, because you said orientated, I thought like the past orientated people is the people who believe the history is the main thing that we need to focus and to preserve the tradition and the past experiences. And the present orientation is the people who try to focus now, this time, and value now. And the people who are future orientated is the people who believe that we need to prepare for the future and we need to focus and prepare for the future and put greatest value on the future.
Great, absolutely correct. So what is an example of a country or a culture that is past time oriented? What country is past time oriented? What about the other, Su Hyun Yi, the one with the black t-shirt?
You said me? Oh.
Yes.
Well, I guess I don't know exact country, but I think they are like most people live in primitive life, like tribe, living with as a tribe, like I guess because they strongly believe the tradition and superstition from their ancestor, I guess.
Oh, it could be, maybe. Any other guess? What about Ali Huang? What do you think? Ali Huang, are you there? What about Ladi Lachi?
Unmute. For me, I think it about the time, right?
Yes, talking about time. What cultures are past time oriented?
Sorry, I don't know the oriented now.
Okay, so
Could you explain this word for me, please?
Sure. It means what is the normal way people think in a different culture, or what country thinks normally about past time? Everything they're thinking about is related to the past time.
How the people do in the past time, right?
Yes, that's the decisions I make today, how I work today, how I act, how the movies are made are designed thinking about the time in the past. Yes.
The time is the past. For me, I guess before the coronavirus, we study face to face, but now it's called the coronavirus is make study online. For me, I understand like it. But
okay.
In the future, we plan to study face to face.
That's nice, but what you're trying to focus on is identify when you do cross-cultural travel, when you do cross-cultural management. Sometimes you will go to a country, and that country, everybody is thinking about time in the past. What about Na Yujong? Miss Na Yujong? Can you try to guess what country has most people thinking in the past? Na Yujong.
Sorry. Can you tell me the question repeatedly?
What about Min-jae Kim? Kim Min-jae,
Yes,
what do you think?
I think country like China has a very strong past-oriented culture because
Absolutely. Why? You said because what?
China has long history and they have historical and some archaeological architects and some cultures. So I think they focus on more past things.
Yes, actually, when they make a movie or a lot of TV shows, a lot of the movies and TV shows, people are thinking about the old days. I don't know if you heard of the idea of the children's comedies, and the Monkey King in China was based on many years ago. They had history, and that created a lot of their movies. Versus in the United States, people say they are future oriented. If you try to do business, and the CEO in the United States, he says he's talking with shareholders about their growth for the future. But that's also a lie. When they're communicating, to really understand cross-cultural communication or to understand cross-cultural business, you have to understand what they mean even before you listen to the word. So yes, Chinese culture is focused on the past time. And they say United States is focused on the future, especially they want to increase future shareholder value. But that's not true. Why? When a CEO and executive in the United States is talking about increasing shareholder value, 99% of business people only care about the stock market price now, this semester, this quarter, this year. So even though they're saying the future, they only react to and work for conditions this year, this quarter. So those are just examples of how time can control the different people's views. So let's get back over to this. I was trying to show you some of these details. So there's also activity perception and space perception. If we look closely in here, this is in our textbook, and what it's showing is that some people, or there's many different ways to, oops, it's getting smaller, not bigger. Try to present it, get it bigger. So some cultures, they're talking about the nature of people. Some people have good versus evil, and other people, they're thinking the opposite. An example is training and development. Give people the opportunity to learn on the job. Or the opposite is you emphasize selection and fit. Some people are right for a job versus other people think we're going to learn on the job. That's the concept of the nature of people. Culture can be defined, people think differently in that way. Another way culture and people are different is some people, they have a relationship to the environment. Like some people, they are dominant over the environment. They can cut down a tree or pull a tree out of the ground, then build a building, and then put the tree back where it looks beautiful. So some people are dominant over nature. Other people think it's nature is dominant over people. So they'll think they'll make the building around the tree, or they'll make their houses with the trees or in the land. Another view of culture is person's relationship to other people. Maybe you can have individual focused people versus group focused people or hierarchical focused people. We've already talked about that. Another one is, what is the primary mode of activity? Some people are doing versus some people are being. An example of that are employees that are doing work hard and they achieve their goals based on maximizing their time at work. Other people, the employees, maybe they work only as much as needed to earn some money to live, and then they just do other social things. So those are some examples of how people live. Overall, you must understand culture is made from values. Values make attitudes. Attitudes make the behavior. You must understand, as I said earlier, SRC, ethnocentrism, and parochialism. Parochialism, as I said before, is you are born knowing only one way. When you are taught a little bit more, you can see ethnocentrism, and ethnocentrism is the notion that your culture or your company knows more or knows better than other people, like Adolf Hitler. So you don't want to just be ethnocentric. Ultimately, you must understand SRC, which is self-reference criterion. You must understand that your understanding and you reference your value and your experience and your knowledge can be bad. You must understand that makes you prejudiced, that makes you biased. You must, to do success and to get success cross-culturally, you must understand what the value of the other person is. So, SRC, ethnocentrism, and parochialism, huge words. I need to see you guys saying quite a lot. And I will have those questions in the quizzes. Culture is not right and it's not wrong. It's not about an individual behavior. Culture is about groups, usually. It does not have to be a country group. For example, Vietnam has twice as many people as Korea, but Vietnam is different. Korea has generally one type of culture, one type of Korean Urinara culture. But Vietnam, there's more than 50 different cultures in Vietnam, plus all the foreigners. So it refers to a collective phenomenon of shared values and shared meanings amongst a group of people. Next, it is not inherited. You can have a different culture from your mom and dad. I have a Canadian culture, and I have kids here in Korea that now have more of a Korean culture than Canadian culture. So culture is more of a product from your surroundings and your environment. Going through the textbook. The textbook is this, and Ali is going to be, can you guys see this? Oops. Yeah. So International Dimensions of Organizational Behavior. You should be getting this book. We are going through this book, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, 5, etc. Those, the chapter topics are basically the weekly topics that we are going to be discussing in class. So go through chapter 1, make sure you understand it, ask questions if you have any questions. If you can find a video that relates to it, great. If you can find some other article that relates to it that's interesting, great. I've showed you Hofstede's website. I also want to show you before we leave today that most managers, most people in the world, they will teach you for proper cross-cultural management, you must know management. You must know what motivates people. And they will talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or Herzberg's study, or McGregor's theory, Hawthorne studies. Those, basically, Hawthorne studies was the first, some of the first management theories that developed after the scientific principle of management. And this was in the 1920s. Then McGregor started in the 50s. Herzberg started also in the 50s. Maslow was also in the 1920s. But these are wrong. These are based only on their culture. You must understand it changes depending on where you are. So this is a note. Inside there's the explanation of what the cultures are. I'm not too worried about what they are. You can study them and check the details. There's the summary of what they are here. For example, Hawthorne's studies, he started just by getting attention. Hawthorne basically just went into a factory about 100 years ago and he turned the lights on and he turned the lights off. Well, what's going to happen if you're working for a company and somebody turns more lights on? If they turn more lights on, you're going to think, oh, maybe the boss is here, maybe the manager's here. I'm going to start working very well because maybe they're watching. That's exactly what happened. And if they turn the lights off, surprisingly, the same thing happens. Maybe the manager's around, he turned something off, so I'm going to keep working even though it's darker. And it's not exactly great management ideas, but it was a famous management idea of how you work when you're crossing cultures. You guys can write a paper about the same concept if you want. Maslow developed it more, Herzberg developed it more, McGregor developed it even more. Theory Z, expectancy theory, equity theory, reinforcement theory. These are all new theories of how to manage, going down to even the equity theory or expectancy, talking about compensation. Everybody in class needs to do a term paper. Some of the consultants from Samsung, Apple, Google, and Amazon that will be working with us, they would like help to find out what is the best cross-cultural compensation system. So when you're talking to staff in another country, how should you pay them? And he will help give you a lot of research about how Samsung does it. And if you're really good in class, maybe you're going to design the new global compensation system for Samsung. That's going to be developed in our class. More descriptions of management motivators and descriptions. Reality is that all of these experts are biased by their own culture. You must understand the culture of the person you're targeting. This is the book. Inside the book, a lot of it is really interesting. For example, this in chapter 7 talks a lot about Maslow says this, Hofstede says this, Trumpenar says this, Hofstede says this again. I won't go into too much of the details the first day because we're almost out of time, but we are following the book very closely. And you see again, more information, Hofstede, Maslow, Herzberg. So Hofstede is very important. Make sure you know what Hofstede is talking about. I showed you their website, power distance, individualism. Next class, I hope to ask you, and we'll have one student tell me, what are the other ways Hofstede evaluates culture? More with Hofstede. Parochialism, I've defined that for you. This starts to get a little bit interesting. So we should be finished class now. I'm going to finish with this example. It's just, I gave you small, silly examples in class about how people have different cultures, but what about this question? It is important for managers to have answers, precise answers, exact answers to most questions any worker asks. Do you agree or disagree? So this is talking about how much people agree. Over here, these people agree that a manager must have all answers. And so it says in Japan, the Japan manager, if you're working in Japan and somebody asks you a question, you must have the answer or come up with or guess the answer. Same thing in Spain or Indonesia, a little bit less in Italy, less in France, less in Germany, less in Belgium, Switzerland, Great Britain, Denmark, United States, Netherlands, Sweden. So Sweden, are they freaks? What's going on in Sweden? Che Song-yeon. Can you tell me what do you think is happening in Sweden? Why is Sweden different? What does it mean in Sweden?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Anybody want to guess? Can you help?
Does that mean that people in Sweden is trying to cooperate together to find an answer?
Absolutely, yes. They don't lie to you. In these other countries like Spain or Japan, if you ask a question, they're going to guess and tell you the answer, even if they're completely wrong. Many years ago, Korea was just like this. It was so much that the leader had to have all answers that even pilots, when pilots were flying planes in Korea in the 1980s, nobody could ask a question to the leader, the top pilot, and sometimes the pilot was sleeping or he was wrong, and the plane actually, they had other younger pilots learning behind the main pilot, and the plane still flew into a building or flew into a mountain and everybody died. Because the culture is you don't question, you don't go around the boss. But in Sweden, everybody should ask questions. Everybody's equal. So it's okay in Sweden and Denmark to say, I don't know, that guy's the expert, let's ask him. Or that guy has a PhD in it, let's ask him. That's what it means. So I'm going to end the conversation there. Hopefully next week you will be able to show me, you know, an example of a cultural problem like this, and you can show me that you have completed the Excel file signing up for your week project and your term project, and define what week topic you're interested in and what research topic for the whole semester you're interested in, and put that in a survey. Ali is going to be surveying you for these answers, and we have it in the Excel sheet. But because Google has information overload problems with coronavirus, when you write your stuff in the Excel sheet, save a copy for you, just in case it gets deleted or overwritten by somebody else. And we'll share this information next week and going forward. So I talked way too much. My culture as an old man is not to talk so much. Next week, I want you guys to come up with more examples of cultural differences.